Oh, yeah, oh, yeah. Are you looking for a film that has big time count? What B-movie will be your ultimate champ? You might think they're crazy, might think they're diseased, but they watch all the shots to find the best of the beats. It's Stan, Jim, Jack, and Nick who watch till it's finished. But their love for these movies can be diminished. And maybe the film's plot has no rhyme or reason, but that's part of the jam. Owen Brad of the season. It's the low-budget film that it is most true. They find in the flick that's most boogaloo. Kung Fu, electric boogaloo. Ooh, ooh, electric boogaloo. Kung Fu, electric boogaloo. Ooh, ooh, electric boogaloo.
Yak Mala! Yak Mala! Welcome back, my friends, to the Kung Fu Electric Boogaloo. I am your host, Ape Dan Stanadu. So happy to be with you today to talk about Season 12, One Shit Wonder of the Kung Fu Electric Boogaloo. Joining me on my trip through the Boogaloo experience is Jim Kata.
I am thrilled to be here to talk about Traxx.
Traxx. And Jack Hall. Are you thrilled?
Sup? Well, I thought Traxx with three X's at the end was a porn. Wasn't. Though it was nice to finally watch a movie for this season that wasn't PG or PG-13. I don't think we've ever got 4 movies in a row that were like PG like we did this year. Nevertheless, 4 to start a season, so it was nice to get a nice hard R in there.
And Nick Boxer.
Greetings and salutations. You know, I never thought of how to pronounce 3 X's in a row before right this second. Now that's all I can think of.
It is only 2 X's in a row, in fairness.
Is it?
Yep, it's only 2. Because 3 X's would make it a porn. So this is not a porn.
And it doesn't show up on Pornhub, I look.
Well, as the gentlemen have explained, we are doing the movie Traxx with 2 X's. The film that, and the reason why it winds up in our One Shit Wonder season, the film stars Shadoe Stevens, the voice of, well, you know, radio and announcers, and of course Hollywood squares from the 80s and early 90s. Now, jamming Shadoe Stevens in as an action star is an interesting decision to say the least, but I guess we'll find out how everybody else feels about that soon enough. So Nick, why don't you tell us all about what happens in Traxx?
Well, Manly Man, Shadoe Stevens stars as Traxx. Now, he is a cookie-obsessed crime eliminator. You may sort of wonder what a crime eliminator does. Well, he travels around town to town, eliminating crime and charging those towns for this service. He rolls into this town and approaches the top cop and says, I'm going to kill all your crime. And the top cop gives him the thumbs up. The rest of the movie... You
just watched this a few minutes ago, right?
And you're so wrong. Like, it's unbelievable how wrong you are.
Somebody's been drinking. All right, keep going.
So Shadoe Stevens goes and tracks down basically just random crime elements and kills them. And this guy is so tough. When people are shooting at him, he never even ducks. Rarely turns around. And Robert Davi is the big crime boss in the town, and he seems to get blown up at a inappropriate time or a strange time because there's 25 minutes in the movie left. Other than that, not much happens. What I believe is a female elected official DA seems to have sex with him for no reason.
Oh, shit.
Look at that hair. You know the reason. Look at Shadoe Stevens' hair.
No doubt.
Wow. What did I get wrong?
I don't know.
Let's see.
Stan, you start.
Okay, so first off, he's a mercenary. And he's realizing that he might want to get out of the mercenary game, so he thinks perhaps cookies would be the thing. He tries to bake cookies, and then after he bakes cookies and he realizes that he's an epic failure at baking cookies, he needs more money. So then to get that more money, he hears on the radio where the top cop of this town is saying, I really am planning on retiring, and there's a lot of crime in here. I sure wish that we could get somebody in who would come in and clear out the town. Shadow Stevens.
Was it called a city cleaner or something like that, or what do they call them? That was a term for it.
I forget, but then it's
Maybe you watched it 10 minutes ago. What was the term? We used it multiple times.
I couldn't remember for the thing. I went with Eliminator, but I'm not
Eliminator.
Like a town cleaner or something.
Yeah,
He's talking about like the Old West, so
yeah.
it would have been like town.
But it was town. But it was like
Yeah, but this
like
is not his first time, because we had the first scene where he's actual cop.
But it is his first time. Like, he just decides to go and do it because it's just like, well,
Yeah,
hey,
that's
I'm
fair.
a mercenary,
he's a cop,
so...
and it's fair. He's a cop, and then he's a mercenary, and then he's
Oh, okay.
the
All right.
town.
There is
town
three
clean-
movies
town cleaner.
that was put into the first 5 minutes. That's true.
Yeah, that's fair.
But and so then he decides, hey, I need some money, so I'm going to go and clear out this town out of the goodness of my heart, and they are going to pay me the set amount of, what was it, $10,000, $15,000 that he said, and it's just like, so it doesn't seem like a lot. Maybe in the early '90s it was a lot, but yeah, and so then he goes in and proceeds to clear out the town, which is essentially one road that looks like a Hollywood backlot.
Essentially, in other words, yes, that's what it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
And along the way, of course, he winds up, running into the mayor, who of course cannot sleep, hasn't had sex in a very long time because she can't sleep with any of the voters because that would be bad. So he's not a voter, so it's perfectly okay to have sex with him.
And that hair is just panty remover.
It's true.
Well, it is.
He's
It's
Shadow.
true.
He is Shadow Stevens, and she is Priscilla Barnes. I mean, that's an attractive blonde couple right there.
Oh yeah, that's their kids would be fantastic.
Oh,
so
they're
I mean,
beautiful children.
beautiful.
I am not sure she knew how to have sex, because she
Yeah, that's
seems to like stand 4 feet away from him,
Just social
and just-
distancing.
touch yourself in
God
strange
bless
ways, and talk vaguely sexual.
She does jump on him a couple of times. Just,
Her performance was very strange. Like, I was wondering what the direction was. Like, Shadow Stevens does not want you to come close to him, but act as sexual as possible.
I don't know. I really. Maybe you should have watched the Triple X version. Um,
yeah, it does feel like Nick actually went and just recently watched a totally different movie again.
okay, well, my question is for you, Stan, because you're the one who picked this.
Yes.
And I know you watched this like decades ago.
Well,
like, I don't know how
whenever it
long
came
ago.
out, it would have been like a couple of years after it came out.
Yeah. So it was forever ago, and I've had this experience myself where it's like, I remember watching that years ago, and that's so perfect for the podcast, and it's gonna be such a good score, and then I watch them, and I'm like, my memories of it are a little different than its reality. So where does this one sit for you on that?
Well, see, when I first watched it, I didn't like the movie at all. Like, I had no idea what the hell was going on because you watch Shadow Stevens, and you do I guess you expect an action movie, and it's really this like silly half-assed action movie kind of.
It's a comedy. It's a comedy with a
full-on
little
comedy.
bit of action.
Yeah, with a little bit of action.
It's a full-on comedy.
And I don't think I was expecting what I got, and so it just seemed too silly and too stupid at the time. So when I thought about it, I thought, well, too silly and too stupid. See, now that sounds perfect for Boogaloo. And quite honestly, as I watched this, I laughed my ass off and had an amazing time watching the movie this time. So
Now, do you think the cookie stuff was added into the script because they knew they could get Famous Amos to do the cameo at the end? Was that why the cookies
Is that
were
who that
added?
was?
Yeah,
Famous
it
Amos,
was.
no
Yeah.
idea.
They only refer to him as famous. refer to him as they never say Amos. But
They can't
or
say Amos
Wally.
because famous Amos does not own his name.
Well, he did in 1988.
Okay.
But yes, I mean
I don't actually. He might not have. He might have sold that in the mid 80s.
Yeah, but either way, that is that is Amos of Famous Amos in there, and it's a great cameo in that regard. I mean, do I think that was predicated on that? And it seems a rather silly thing, like to suddenly be like, "Hey, Famous Amos wants to be in my Shadow Stevens starring movie. We should make him a prospective cookie baker." It seems more like they had a cookie idea, and then they were like, "Hey, can we get Famous Amos to make a cameo?"
Now, there is a lot of cookie content throughout this movie.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the. Part of the funny.
It's too much of the plot. It's too much of the plot for it to be a toss-in. Yeah. Like, it was too important to the actual story. The fact that he wanted to bake cookies and instead what were some of the cookies he made? Didn't he make one with like halls or something like that? Trying to clear your throat?
Yeah. I made some notes.
Chili con carne cookies.
Yeah.
Yes. He would make everything. Oh, the crab cake cookies. Get the crab cookies because
right.
Hey, it works in a crab cake. So how can it not work?
Works in a cake. Why wouldn't it work in a cookie? Yeah. It was a fun movie. I had fun watching it.
Yeah, the cough drop and laxative. That was probably my favorite overall. Yeah. No, I mean it's interesting because it's completely silly, and I mean it I guess it follows a somewhat similar path, but I love the fact that throughout the movie, especially in the early going, it's just kind of like every set absolutely looked like a Hollywood backlot for sure. I mean, once they got to the outside a little more, then you can tell like, oh, they actually were shooting that outside. But yeah, so much of it looked like just Hollywood backlots in the early going.
So $6.5 million budget. It was originally intended for a theatrical release, and then last minute was pulled and released direct to video. So,
so somebody saw it and then pulled it.
Well, I mean, it's a very interesting case because, I mean, Shadow Stevens, now, overall, I actually found him really likable and really enjoyable in the character. Like, he just kind of brought this fun kind of, attitude
surprisingly believable as a tough guy. Because when you brought this up, I was sort of like, oh my God, Shadow Stevens, like, he's a radio DJ. This is going to not be believable at all. I mean, you might as well had Paul Rubens running around being an action hero. But it strangely worked. I don't know whether it was like 80s hair, just I've been predisposed by Mel Gibson to, tough guys have this like bouffant hairdo, but
I see that.
I went with it. It was like not an adjustment at all. I was like, I'm actually judging from his performance. I'm surprised we didn't get more of Shadow Stevens as a tough guy between then and now,
or even just something really like some other, like, obviously I guess it speaks to how this movie was received in the fact that Shadow Stevens didn't wind up going on and doing another movie. I mean, he did like appearances in movies as Shadow Stevens largely, and of course he went to Dave's World as the TV show, but I mean, that's not a lot of acting for a guy that I thought was pretty decent in the role.
Now, he was a DJ like a famous DJ at this point, right?
He was massively famous, and he had done the Hollywood Squares, I believe, at this point. I mean, his radio show at one point was getting 1 billion listeners, and that's a B, with a B, 1 billion listeners. So, I mean, obviously, he's making more than a little bit of money. I mean, the movie career would have had to be incredibly lucrative for him to go away from that.
Because, I mean, in this role, he doesn't even talk that much.
I mean, I no more than a starring role.
I mean, you could. He could have done a whole like.
I guess you're right. There's no serious spot. There's nothing like that scene in Miami Connection where the guy talks about his father dying. No, you're right.
There's no dramatic backstory part. Yeah.
No, I mean, you get a radio DJ who can do the snappy patter and stuff. There wasn't any of that.
No. I mean, well, not so much. I mean, it opens up like, because open up like you say, he's the cop. It's exactly Dirty Harry. I think it was actually Magnum Force. It's almost the exact scene. It plays out, and then he goes and does the Mercenary, and I'm like, I'm still not quite sure what I'm watching, because I thought I was going to be watching sort of an action movie and whatever. And then there's a point where he's walking by a mirror and he's like shooting people and checking his hair is still good. I'm like, oh, it's a comedy. And then I got into it, right? I don't know if that was anybody else's experience.
About halfway through, I really started thinking of it in terms of this is an A-Team episode.
Yeah,
that's.
And there's a lot of people that explode, even though they don't get up. Like, people actually die on, like, the A-Team. But people definitely blow up and they go, like, flying in the air, kind of that real
It's a lot of those same shots that they had in the A-Team where it's from underneath and there's people flying over the camera.
Yes.
Where it's like, it's on the ground shooting straight up to... Yeah, that's like the famous A-Team shot, and that happens a few times in this. But like I say, it's quite a violent movie, so...
Yeah, it's surprisingly violent. There's stuff in this that I found like kind of I guess it was the 80s, like just violence on screen was treated differently. Because there's a bit where he's trying to make an example of like the worst street in town, which is, as you said, everything seems to take place on one street. Yes. And the bad guys like turn a corner, I think it's the cops turn the corner, and there's like bodies hanging from the light light posts. I've seen that in a lot of movies, but it's always like bad guys or Nazis that do that. Like it's not usually that's not what the good guy does as an example.
And normally that doesn't appear in a movie that is a comedy. And I think that's also a big part of why I didn't enjoy it before, was because when I looked at it before, it's like it's too much of it doesn't. It's like not enough of one thing, but it's too much of everything else in its own way. Like, it's a comedy, but it's also extremely violent, and it's also really, really like it's like Sledgehammer, but taken to the nth degree almost.
That's probably a good. That's probably good a comparison is Sledgehammer, I would say.
Yeah,
and Robert
watched Sledgehammer.
Yeah,
I love that show. But Robert Davi, I mean, he's really funny as the villain. And yet, again, the first scene you see, he gets caught in a car with his jacket and is driving away while he's still in it. But it's weird because he's the villain, so there's no sense of menace to him. And then they bring in those other villains who are supposed a little more menacing, but they still play them for villains.
Oh, the Guzik, the Guzik brothers.
Yeah, this really violent group. The only thing that was really like to me it's a funny movie, except for some of the stuff with the kids. I'm like, okay, that's disturbing. Like when the kids are taped to the car, I'm like, those kids look like they didn't know it was a comedy. They look legit horrified. And then there's a scene where
you say that about every time a kid shows up in a movie, though.
Yeah, but there's a scene where the one guy grabs the kid and he goes, he's 5. Do you want to see him make to 6 with a gun to his head? And you're like, dude, it's a kid. Like, come on.
The placement of the kids in this movie is strange, because he's raiding a whorehouse, and they got a full-on daycare in one of the rooms.
It's just amazing.
I just think that's just I think that's being considerate for your employees. That's right. That's what I think.
That's an excellent perk.
Yeah.
I'm only faulting that I've never seen it in another movie. It's an odd inclusion. That's all I'm saying.
It's possibly my number one WTF.
Oh, absolutely.
I think
Me too.
That you've not seen it in another is a fault of every other movie.
Well, and the Guzik brothers, they were originally banished for a Little League betting scandal thing.
Yeah, they killed the Little League team in a points shaving scandal.
Yes,
that's the line.
And so then when they came back, they grabbed another Little League team. They've obviously got a thing against Little League teams. It's like those things are harsh.
That's good.
See, that totally explains the whole Little
together. That continuity is so important.
Yeah, you don't introduce a Little League team in the first scene and not use them in the third. There's Chekhov said something about this.
And then we haven't mentioned Dieter, of course, the guy that he grabs to be his sidekick in this whole thing. where it's which was an incredibly weird thing. He basically like kidnaps him to a certain degree, threatens him, and then he winds up, of course, becoming the sidekick in that way of like, hey, you need to market yourself. You should sell Traxx t-shirts, and they start selling shirts, and by the end, he's wearing a Traxx t-shirt, and I'm like, and honestly, when I saw that, I'm like, I want a Traxx t-shirt.
Yeah.
Now-
No, so what do you think that guy puts on first on his resume? This or the color purple?
It's got to be this. Got to be this. He's major character in this.
Maybe Air Force One.
Now, Dieter, was Dieter a pimp?
That
Was
would be
his-
my guess, based on the way he was dressed. That's kind of what I would figure. But then again, you'd have no idea.
Because Traxx just sort of drives up on him and shoots his two buddies, and
Okay,
we're
wait.
not really clear.
No, they were kicking
who
his
else?
ass.
Who else
they were
thinks
beating
Shadow?
up, yeah.
Who else thinks Shadow Stevens would have made a great Traxx the Destroyer? Who else?
I actually think there's a lot of things that Shadow Stevens would be pretty good at. In fact, honestly, Shadow Stevens in Terror in Beverly Hills, Shadow Stevens going up against Cameron Mitchell in like a battle of the wits and stuff like that. I think
you've already
pretty
put
awesome.
it in my head that Shadow Stevens' Lethal Weapon would have been.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
really.
Him
Because
and
then I
Danny
can
Glover.
still watch it because I've never heard him say anything against. I've never heard him say anything that keeps me from watching it, unlike the current song.
It's really the hair that made it. It's a bit, and his excellent martial arts skills.
Yeah.
So, how much more we got to say before?
It's true.
For the scores here.
I don't know. I mean, it's funny because there's not a lot to the movie. I mean, it's basically you just watch Shadow Stevens shooting, getting shot at, and people largely missing for the most part. So
Yeah, no, I'm good with it. Let's get to it. And while you said this is Shadow Stevens' only starring role, the director also otherwise only did like documentaries. Like Stripper was one of his documentaries.
sweet.
So yeah.
Ooh, which documentary about strippers is that?
Stripper from 1985. There you go.
Okay. I think
Not
that's
one of the ones
87 minutes.
90.
90. Okay.
Yeah.
The 90-minute version. Okay.
Yeah, that one. Oh my god.
One of those
Okay.
moments. All right, Jim. Let's go to scoring.
Oh, I've lost track of everything. In our search for the ultimate B movie, we rate each film in 5 categories, none of which are objective quality. The first category we call schlock appeal, and we start with Stan.
I mean, I think it's this movie is a ton of fun for me now. Maybe it wasn't in the early days when I thought Shadow Stevens was going to be totally different, but now watching it, it's silly, it's a comedy, but that's also extremely violent and is an action movie, and it's so many random different things with a whole bunch of shit tossed into it. So I'm going to give it an 8.
You give it a better title, and you got a 10. But Traxx, I thought this was going to be a sci-fi movie going in, and I don't know if you had called it like redneck ass kicking dude, it would be a perfect 10. But no, but schlock is high, so I am agreeing with you with an 8.
I'm a little lower. Fun movie. I didn't find it too schlocky, but fun, enjoyable movie. I liked it. I give it a 7.
Well, I think we're all in the same neighborhood. I mean, I think the rugged mercenary ex-cop who cleans up a town is an interesting. I think that's pretty schlock to start, especially in the 80s, with a ton of those kind of movies. 8 is what I got. More heart than budget, and 6.5 mil is what you found there for a budget.
Yeah, 6.5 million.
I mean, wow, a hard one to score. I mean, just the fact that there's a lot of explosions, but it does feel very TV. And of course, being on all the sound stages and that kind of thing. So, I mean, I don't know that they had to spend a lot of money in that kind of regard. I mean, I think the 6.5 million is probably on the screen, but it's not. But when I say heart, like, there's a lot of people like Robert Davi and stuff like that, even like John Hancock, and Priscilla Barnes, they're having fun. Shadow Stevens is having fun, but it's not like a serious role for them. So I'm just gonna go with a 5.
Yeah, there are a lot of people in this that, showed up and like, oh, okay, this is what this is. We'll do it. Let's have some fun with it. But I don't think anyone was trying to make their bones off this one, other than Shadow Stevens, of course. So, 6.
I disagree. 7. No, I just think it had I give it a little more heart than that. I really think that everybody looked like they're having a good time. 6.5 million for an action film isn't a ton, but it's in that B movie realm. It's not like this isn't a Z or Z grade or whatever the hell, It's not
a Roger Corman movie. Yep.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's a real movie. It's just a real B movie, and I think that everybody was trying to have a lot of fun and make a good movie. So,
I think that most of the budget went to explosions and hair extensions.
Yeah, I think hairspray. Yeah.
It's a lot of product in this movie, that's for sure. So I was gonna go a 6, but really an extra 2 just for how much fun Robert Davi had in this movie. I love him, and he didn't do nearly enough comedy, because his being a bad guy in so many films. He's a Bond villain, for God's sakes.
Yeah, exactly.
And then
it's Priscilla Barnes in that movie too, with and License to Kill with.
I want to say no.
I don't think so.
I can't remember. I can never remember which one's which, honestly, of the Bond.
Oh no, that's
License
not
to Kill.
true. She is in License to Kill.
How about that?
They were both in License to Kill.
Nice.
And that was in 1989. Was it a year after?
Oh, wow.
That's insane to think that.
Yes.
That Traxx.
I bet you the same casting director is what you'll end up finding.
Yeah, probably. Well, because that's the thing, right? Like, this is totally distributed by De Laurentiis Entertainment Group, so I mean, there's no doubt that it's got a bit of a pedigree in that regard.
Yeah. Or they were married at the time. There'd be something like that. So much because of Robert Davi, 8 is what I ended up at. What the fuck moments?
It's interesting because it's a comedy and because it allows for a certain level of slapstickery, but then it goes so far. I mean, the fact that it is so, the bodies hanging, that is absolutely what the fuck, because it's just like, wow, that takes you right out. But yes, so for me, it started with the theme song, where they did their level best to have everything rhyme with Traxx. It's like Traxx and relax and all that stuff. Fantastic theme song.
And Maniacs. Maniacs. That was my favorite. That was my favorite rhyme for Traxx.
And then, of course, the daycare for working mothers in the whorehouse. That is unbelievable, because you don't know what kind of a movie it is. And then that shows up completely out of nowhere, and it's crazy, and it's like, what? Huh? But, of course, cough drop and laxative cookie. Now, there's a sequence there in about 2/3 of the way through, where Traxx and Dieter have cleaned up the town, and they've done some cookie baking goodness, but there's music playing, and like it's like a music video sequence where they're against the river, and like we're cutting away to other things, but we're also cutting back to them, like kind of half-assed doing little silly dances against the river and stuff like that, and it's just like, that's really weird. That's completely weird. The Guzik brothers,
Shadow Stevens, man of Tai Chi.
Man of Tai Chi. Fantastic. I mean, the Guzik brothers, and like some of the scenes, like the scenes at the bar with them, where it's just like they kick the ass of the bar, and then they've got to like leave. Oh, I mean, it's quite crazy. But because it's a comedy, I can't go like insanely high. I'm only going to go with a 7.
Oh, well, okay, 7. I can see that. You didn't mention Diaper Boy, which I thought was insane. That you have Robert Davi's son in a diaper and covered in shit.
And he's the only one who actually successfully shoots Traxx.
Yeah. Dressed as, I don't know. He's wearing like makeup and Steve Martin arrow through the head. And not a lot is made out of that. Yeah, just a random thing and unnecessarily gross. Not to mention, I still don't know what Robert Davi, his death scene. What blew up the car? Was it his farts? Was that what was going on there?
That was going to be my WTF. It was indeed his fart from having eaten Shadow Stevens cookies.
His
He
chili
farts
con
on
carne.
He ate the chili con carne. This
That's
isn't
right.
bad.
And
And
then
then
he
he
was-
insulted at the end. And
He was lighting his cigar when he got into the car and it exploded, which may be the best scene I've seen in a movie ever.
That's, you know what, I didn't realize, so bump me up one on the fact, because I didn't draw that connection, so bump me up one on my what the fucks for that.
So, I mean, a lot of that stuff was, just a little too far for the type of comedy this was. So, yeah, I'm going with an 8 as well.
okay, so I did not see it as being crap all over Diaper Boy. I thought it was just dirt and whatever. I did not see it being that gross. My favorite part of that, though, was, Shadow Stevens says, "Are you all right? Yeah. Do you want to ride my bike? Yeah." That's how he spoke. And that was really weird. But as an overall thing, again, would you get in this realm where you're doing a comedy, like I say, early in the film, he's shooting people and looking at his hair, making sure it's still perfect. It takes away all the WTF-ness of it. Because you create a world where everything's wide open and acceptable. Yes, all the dead bodies was weird and stuff. It has some, but it's not as high as it could have been. So I'll give it a 6.
Well, I mean, as I said, the fart explosion is perhaps one of the greatest scenes in film history. I thought it was hilarious that he was, without any other mention of it, wearing his own T-shirt, like the T-shirt of him, for like the second half of the movie.
Yes.
The constant references to the evil of the ACLU is such a great 80s thing. How that terrible ACLU is the reason everything has gone wrong in this town. There's a great bit where I know it's played mostly for comedy, so I just want to talk about this. And actually, I'll hang on. I'll hold that one for memorable moments. We do talk about how WTF are the weird decisions or the strange choices, and there's a bit where it is in the section where he's knocking over the whorehouse, and he's bursting in, he's shooting up rooms and scaring everyone off, and there's one shot where he kicks a door and it doesn't open. And they just kept that shot. Like, there's like, why on earth would you have left the shot where he fails to kick open a door? So that one just leaped out at me as a weird moment of the whole film. So I'm at an 8 for this as well. Memorable moments.
Well, this one, it's an interesting movie because now I'm definitely going to, I never forgot the fact that it existed. Like, there's no question that Traxx, I remember that movie. That's the one with Shadow Stevens. But I didn't remember that much in it. Well, now, after watching it again, I can definitely say that I will remember a lot more of the stuff that's in it. One of my favorite lines comes like right early on. It's like, "Are you a cop? Worse." And it's just one of those like what? I'm not completely sure I understand what that even means, but it's so fitting of the movie in that regard. So, there's a lot of largely, somewhat forgettable action sequences within it because it is an action movie, but just the way they jam it through, and the cookies, I'm never going to forget the random cookies. Even if I, like, anytime I come across a crab cake, I am now going to think of a crab cake cookie. Like, that's just 100% going to happen. I'm going to give this a 7.
I will remember Robert Davi's cure for male problems forever. I mean, his wife's working on him with one hand, reading a magazine. He's lifting weight. That was so funny because you're not really sure 100% what's going on because everything's so bizarre. That and the shooting of the belt buckle, I loved.
Yeah.
That and Shadow Stevens saying goodbye to everybody after he chases the scumbugs out of the bar. Nice to see you. Don't come back or I will kill you.
That is one of the single that is true. That's one of the single best. Yep.
I was thinking of another 48 hours when that happened because they have a very similar scene, except there's no shaking of the hand. I just love that scene, so I'll remember that. Oh, number. Let's go with 7.
I think it's I will not forget the ass-kicking mercenary who really just wants to be a cookie maker. And he's reluctantly kicking ass. Lucky for him, he heard that ad saying that this town needed somebody to kick ass because he's out of money. He spent 5 years trying to make cookies and failing. So I will not forget that. Somehow, for some reason, and I won't forget Robert Davies' jacket cut in the limo. So just laugh so hard at that. And the everybody, all the yes men in his boardroom, was scene with him. I thought that was really funny.
What a great scene that is, or at the point where they're all laughing and he's trying to get them to actually say the truth.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a lot of fun. I think for some reason the scene though that sticks with me the most when I think of this movie, I think of the cop character. I can't remember the actor. He's been around for everything. That character actor plays like the head sheriff or whatever.
The chief, John Hancock.
Yeah, John Hancock. Yeah, so when he's walking out of the station and two of his officers are bringing in one of the many criminals that this town is overrun by, who's handcuffed. And he tosses them. They get up to the top of the window, and one guy gets tossed out. And he looks at him, and he's hanging. He looks at him, just shrugs his shoulders and walks away. I do not know why. That's the image of this guy hanging while the other guy's fighting this criminal with the handcuffs on. That's the image to me that's burned in my mind.
The funny thing is that the police station actually looks more like the White House than the White House did in Terror in Beverly Hills.
So true, so true. And it does have one great line. But you mentioned one, but my favorite was "Flap your arms and suck some sky." I thought that was a great line. I got a 7 on this.
What was that line earlier on? Difference between garbage and trash. You throw out garbage, but trash you kill.
Yes, that's trash you kill.
The scene in the bar was going to be that was my memorable moment. I was going to mention is because there's a whole lineup of people, and he says, "Nice to see you. Don't come back or I'll kill you." And he says that to like 10 people in a row. I just laughed harder every time.
Every time. I was sitting there watching it, just laughing my full head off because it was so funny.
It does have really great lines, and Robert Davi is just so terrific in this. So I'm up to an 8 on this. Crazy concept.
I mean, you take mercenary and stuff like that, cleaning up the town. I mean, okay, that's not crazy in and of itself. The fact that you decided to hire a radio host to do that, that's crazy. And then the fact that it's a comedy, but with a whole bunch of really bad stuff, is crazy. And of course, you go into lack of continuity and stuff like that. No, it's not crazy. It's just boogaloo. But I think this is pretty overall crazy. So I'm going to go with an 8.
Well, I kind of disagree with that. Shadow Stevens, he was sort of up and coming at this time. Just broaden the appeal, put him in a low budget action film, a little bit of a comedy for cross genre appeal. I don't think that it's that crazy. Execution wise, yes. I don't think they had a script when they got financing. Otherwise, the cookie stuff may have been pared down a little bit. pretty crazy, but not over the top. 6.
Yeah, I think that's the right score for me too. I would also give it a 6. I mean, I think it's kind of. I do think the idea that putting a guy who's a radio host and voiceover guy, a game show announcer, and go on to obviously be Craig Ferguson's announcer on his late night show and things like that. Like this guy's. The idea you put him in the head of a movie, and like you say, the idea that it's a comedy, the idea that they went so far in on the comedy when honestly the action films in 1988 would have been the easy direction to go in, is more common. So yeah, I think it's a little bit crazy, but it's certainly not Frankenhooker. So
what is Frankenhooker? I'll tell you, Frankenhooker.
A basket case. But anyways, 6 for me too.
All right, I'll split the difference with a 7 on this. I do think that I've got a radio host and I'm going to build a comedy around it. Fair enough. Like that's what you would do. Makes sense. But yeah, the other things that are layered onto it are a bit wacky. I mean, before we leave this, I want to say that what I love about when he makes cookies is that at no point does he do anything resembling what you would do if you were making a cookie. Like he shows his own kitchen, and he's got stuff boiling on top of the stove. He's got stuff he's burning within the stove. But I'm like, none of those things have anything to do. Like the pot of stuff boiling on the stove has.
Oh yeah,
I'm really not sure what it has to do with making a cookie.
I think he was making slime.
Yeah, it could be. All right, so
sorry, there's one other moment because of the cookies. There was the part where he's in the grocery store with Priscilla Barnes, and he pulls out this thing of flour, and she's like, "No, there's better flour," and she hands it to him, and he keeps trying to put it back. Like he'll never accept that she knows something that he doesn't in regards to cookie making.
I love that he just tries to macho through with cookies. That he's not going to read the instructions. He's going to do it the old-fashioned way.
And of course, that brought us to our last Snacks by Traxx being his store, which was, of course.
I still can't get over the fact that I can't remember what it was he was called. The people that come clean up the town, so city cleaner, village vigilante, or it was something. It was alliteration. I'm pretty sure of that.
Town Tamer.
That's it. Town Tamer.
Thank
Just
you. I knew it had to
bugging
be
the hell out of
town.
me.
Yes.
I knew it had to be town because it was Old West thing.
I do like Village Vigilante, I gotta say.
It's a good one. Yeah. And if you hadn't said Village Vigilante, then I probably wouldn't have gotten Town Tamer. But
all right,
okay.
Teamwork there.
Yeah.
All right, 7 is what I ended up with, and each season we have 6 secret modifiers, and this movie gets none of them. So solid modifiers.
You don't think they wanted a sequel out of this?
I don't think the set up a sequel is what we said, and I don't think there's actually there's nothing that I mean, you could have made 18 of these.
It's not Rotor in that regard. You're
Yeah,
right.
no.
Yeah, it doesn't end with
Rotor 2
coming soon. Traxx Jr.
Yeah. If they made an animated series out of this, like Bruno the Kid with Traxx Jr., I'd be so in for that.
All right, so that gives us a final score of 71.5 out of 100, tying it with both Star Crash and Ninja the Violent Sorcerer.
All right, I like.
Pretty
I
good.
mean, I liked it. It was great. What a
ton of fun.
Yeah. We've had a few movies now that you talk about, like, I mean, Rotor to Traxx. I mean, of course, we have our next movie, which is some might say hilarious, and so I mean, it's a good run right now.
Yeah, I was really glad that you put this in. I got a lot of enjoyment out of this movie.
Absolutely.
I think if it was played a little straighter, it would have done better on the Octagon, but I might not have liked it as much. So
I know it's true. Like there was next to no chance. I mean, it had a little bit of booby action, but there was next to no chance that it was actually going to top out, because there's too many elements to it that are just a little too standard. But otherwise, I mean, it's a super fun movie. Glad to have it on the Octagon for sure. Well,
yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I think, after this, let's hopefully that we cause it to get a DVD release or Blu-ray or whatever. Because it's nowhere, dude. The fact that good job finding it for us there, James.
Yeah, I had to dig into some Well, it's not quite the dark web. Like it's the
not.
dusk web.
The dusk
web. That's what I call
The dusk web.
All right. Well, Jim, let's do some business.
All right. Please review and subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app. It helps us get the word out, and also you can subscribe and to us on YouTube. And if you want to subscribe on YouTube and then just leave every episode playing while you go on vacation, that helps us too. Like,
and put it on
YouTube
repeat.
loves it if you
can
exactly.
do that, right?
Just put every episode into a queue, into a watch list, and then just have it play. You can do that.
Most people right now are leaving the house to go on vacation.
maybe just do it to keep you company.
There you go. Just
there's other voices in the house.
Just have us talking to you all the time.
We are the voices in your head.
That'll definitely take the edge off of being stuck in the house if you just hear us constantly. We are also sponsored by WeTalkPodcasts.com. That is the home of the Octagon, where you can find our ongoing list of our search for the ultimate B movie, sorted by every category and final score. And click on the movie name to take you right to the episode. And we are on Instagram at Kung Fu Electric Boogaloo.
All right. Well, Season 12, One Shit Wonder, carries on next with unfortunate lack of Academy Award-winning movie Cabin Boy, starring Chris Elliott.
Academy Award eligible.
Academy Award eligible. Yep. But it didn't win, which is a damn shame.
It did have... They played a clip at the Academy Awards that year, because that was the year that Letterman hosted.
Nice.
All right. Well, I look forward to talking about Cabin Boy, and I think I know somebody else who's looking forward to talking about it as well. So, what do you say we move on to that? Anybody have anything
Which means
to say?
that technically the guy who directed Cabin Boy has a credit as a director on the Oscar.
Woohoo!
That's almost the same as having an Oscar.
Totally.
So is that Oscar adjacent?
Yeah, that's Oscar adjacent.
I would call it that. Yeah,
That's good work. It's not sand adjacent, but it's Oscar adjacent. All right, let's get out of here. So for Jim and for Jack and for Nick, I am your host, 8th Dan Stanadu. Thanks for listening to the Kung Fu Electric Boogaloo.
The police wouldn't take him.
I think I want to go into cookies.
The animal shelters wouldn't touch him.
Maybe I could use another opinion.
Thank God he's on our side.
Very funny.
Are you a cop?
Temporarily. My cookie business is a little undercapitalized.
Let me try one of your peppermint prune cookies, please.
Introducing Traxx.
Decent people on one side of the room, scum on the other. You're all scum?
He knows only one thing about the law.
What'll it be? Guns or fists?
Sometimes it gets in the way.
Fish.
Done.
Anybody got any ideas what to do about this cowboy?
Kill the sucker!
So, attention, all you criminals, crooks, and bad guys. Hit the dirt. It's a Traxx alert.
Look out! Gonorrhea!
The new and improved, totally tasteless approach to justice.
What do you think of a chive cookie?
I don't think anybody gonna want your jive cookies.
Traxx.
Come back again, and you're dead. Good night.
He's coming to clean up
Good night, come back again, and I'll kill you.
your town.
Yeah, don't ever. You.